I'm David Lombardo, and this is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room, and we're going to explore New York's public higher education system through the lens of its students. And to do that, we're joined in the studio by Luca Rallis, an undergraduate at SUNY Stony Brook and the president of the SUNY Student Assembly. Thanks for making the time, Luca.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get into higher education policy, let's talk about you. How did you end up representing more than 1 million SUNY students?
Yeah, so when I first started at Stony Brook 4 years ago now, I had the opportunity to get involved in student governance there through their undergraduate student government. I started as a student government senator, worked my way up there, and found the SUNY Student Assembly and found that we can have a voice at the SUNY level, at the state level. I did policy government relations for SUNY SA, as we're called, last year. I had the opportunity to run for president, and that's what I've been doing this year.
So in the policy and government relations role, does that make you responsible for doing some of their lobbying, so to speak? Have you gotten familiar or at least had some experience dealing with state lawmakers and maybe the governor's team as well?
Yeah, that's right. Part of the Student Assembly's main purpose is to be the lobbying arm of the students of SUNY. And in that role, I created our policy agenda, our budget asks, and then took that alongside our then president and brought them to legislators in the chamber.
And in terms of where the ideas and priorities of the SUNY Student Assembly stem from, I imagine it's difficult to capture the voice of more than 1 million students. And I also wonder how engaged those students are or even aware of the issues that impact them. So how do you go about setting your priorities as a body?
Yeah, I'm very lucky as president to be able to visit campuses across our state, speak with everyday students, and that's the best opportunity to hear about the challenges that students are facing. At the same time, we have student government presidents, student government leaders from across the state who attend conferences we put on, events we put on, and we come together and hear from them what their constituents are hearing about, what they're concerned about.
Well, let's talk about some of those concerns. Do you enter this year's budget process, which is now 2 weeks overdue, with any major priorities? Is there one or a handful of things that stand out?
We, of course, always come with a pretty large stack of asks. Higher education in this state is a pretty big thing, but we had some big priorities this year. The top of mind is capital funding. We have a $10 billion critical maintenance deficit across SUNY. At my home campus of Stony Brook, it's $2 billion in deferred maintenance there alone. That has a real effect on the day-to-day lives of our students, whether it's the classrooms they're learning in, the labs that they're doing research in, the residence halls and the infrastructure that supports them. It has a real impact on not just their learning, but their whole as a student, because they live on our campuses, and that's their life for the 4 years that they're there. And so that is one of our big asks, to make sure that the chamber and that the legislators understand that SUNY students need more funding for our infrastructure and our facilities. So we're asking for $1.46 billion in new funding for this coming fiscal year for critical maintenance and capital funding. And we're asking for that as part of a multi-year capital plan, which is really the key part of it, so that our institutions have sustained funding that they can plan for. We're also focused on a number of other programs. Our EOP program, Educational Opportunity Program, is incredibly successful, and students are so passionate about it. We're always looking to increase funding for that to make more room for more students to participate. And we're also asking for the first time for students that are incarcerated through our SUNY Higher Education in Prison program, which does fantastic work. That doesn't receive any direct state tax support right now. So we're asking for that to receive direct state tax support for the first time.
A lot to flesh out there.
Yeah.
Let's start with the campuses and ensuring that they are places where students want to go and will have a good time and have a meaningful time. One of the things that I've wondered about is, why not shrink the footprint of the SUNY campuses as a way to begin to address that need? Because a lot of these campuses are older, and we see a population that is lower than what it was years ago, albeit one that has been ticking up in recent years. Do you think that should be part of the conversation? Should we be right-sizing, so to speak, the number of SUNY campuses, or should we be holding the line there?
You know, in terms of our physical footprint, we see some strategic decisions about moving maybe a community college campus to a four-year campus, which happened recently in one case. But overall, all 64 of our campuses offer something unique to students. They may offer a program or an experience that you can't get at another SUNY institution. And students across the state really value that, right? So we're really incredibly grateful to Governor Hochul. Over the last few years has dedicated significant historic increases in operating support across the board to all of our campuses, right? But we really need to see the capital funding to match that need, and that's what we're looking for here.
And any preferences on where that money goes? Do you think that they should be prioritizing certain needs or certain campuses over others? Or do you have another way of how this money should be distributed?
We really need an all of the above solution. Critical maintenance is so important to make sure that the classrooms and the labs are up to par, that the elevators in our buildings work to make sure that they're accessible. We also need to fund research facilities, building new research facilities so we can continue to increase research capacity, make sure that we're attracting the best in class researchers and teachers and professors for our students to learn from. So we really do need an all of the above approach, not only when it comes to distributing it across our campuses, but in terms of the type of funding that we're receiving.
Any concerns about either capital dollars or even the operating dollars flowing disproportionately to the favorite sons, so to speak, of the governor at the expense of maybe the campuses that need a little more tender love and support?
I think the governor has, over the last 3 enacted budgets, brought us historic levels of operating support, and that has benefited every single one of the 64 campuses. Each of those has seen an increase in the operating support they're receiving. Capital funding is similarly distributed to all of our campuses. Every single one of our campuses has a capital need that has a real impact on students, and we're making sure that the capital funding money that does come through hits all of those campuses and make sure that we're supporting every student no matter where they are.
Well, before we move on, let me reintroduce you for listeners just joining us. I'm David Lombardo, and this is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room, and we're speaking with Luca Rallis, an undergraduate at SUNY Stony Brook, who's also the president of the SUNY Student Assembly. So you mentioned the EOP, or Educational Opportunity Program. When it comes to increasing access there, is it just about funneling more money into this program, or would you like to see changes to eligibility thresholds or how money can be utilized? What's the ask there?
Well, the actual program is tuned very well, and students are incredibly appreciative of it, and we find it to be incredibly successful. We're really just looking for more funding to increase the seats. We do see the seats continue to rise, and we have increased demand for it every single year, but the funding just doesn't climb to match that, so we need to make sure that we have the funding to continue supporting those students who want to participate.
More broadly speaking, do you have any feelings about how much a SUNY education should cost? I mean, for some people, the idea is this should be free. If you want to go to college and you're from New York, this should be free if you qualify. Other people argue that, we need to be thinking about these as in competition with private schools and offer tuition that is in competition. What do you think?
Affordability is always at top of mind for SUNY students. Many SUNY students attend our schools tuition free, but that's not where the story ends. There are significant fees, housing, food costs, and even health insurance costs that sort of aren't lumped in with that number. We have a number of wonderful financial aid programs in our state, which we hope to see continue to be expanded, whether it's TAP or the SUNY Reconnect program. At the same time, we need the federal government to step in. The Pell Grant has been stagnant. We need to see the Pell Grant increased, ideally doubled in the near future, to make sure that we're supporting our students at the federal level and at the state level. My ultimate dream would be to have every single person in the state of New York be able to receive a 4-year degree debt-free. It's a long way there, but I think that's the path we need to be on.
Well, speaking about access to higher education, you mentioned earlier the idea of educating that incarcerated population. There has been a real challenge to invest state dollars into this, in large part because the public response is, wait, my child or my family member hasn't done anything wrong. Why aren't they prioritized over this population? What do you think of that argument? And do you feel like society as a whole benefits if New York is investing in this population?
Yeah, in many ways, our incarcerated students are the most vulnerable population. And by supporting them with an education, we're reducing recidivism so that they can come out, join the community, and be productive members of society. SUNY's Higher Education and Prison Program is already doing an amazing job doing this work, whether it's by educating students in our facilities or providing them with reentry support once they are released. But this doesn't receive any direct state tax support right now. And so we feel as the student body that this is something that should be prioritized, and we're asking for $3 million in the state budget for that program.
And what if the governor or the legislative leaders say, hey, we hear you on this, and we're prepared to take $3 million out of EOP or $3 million out of some existing tuition program that goes to the kids who are getting the traditional campus experience. Are you okay with that? I mean, are you okay thinking about this as a zero-sum game?
I think at the end of the day, it really isn't a zero-sum game. I think
oh boy,
we need
why
to,
isn't it?
I think we need to recognize that Yes, the state budget is tight. It's always tight. But we need to make sure that we're bringing as much money into public higher education, the State University of New York, as possible. And so we really shouldn't be, we shouldn't be taking money away from any of our other programs to specifically support another one. We need to make sure that there's continuing to be more money flowing into SUNY. The higher education in person program is one that we know is successful. And at the end of the day, $3 million maybe isn't a significant amount of money when it comes to what the state budget is overall, but it would make a real significant impact.
Any points of disagreement between what the SUNY Chancellor is prioritizing in Albany and what the SUNY Student Assembly is prioritizing?
When we see what the SUNY Chancellor and the SUNY Board of Trustees is prioritizing, and I'm, lucky to be able to sit on that board and participate in that discussion, they really recognize the needs that students have. And when it comes to these programs, whether it's EOP or capital funding, they do a fantastic job recognizing our needs. I see my job and our job as the Student Assembly to pick out those asks that are especially relevant to the student body or where maybe they don't go far enough, and lending our voice to that discussion, providing our personal testimonials about why these things are so important.
So nothing like no classes before 9 a.m. on Fridays or anything? Nothing like
No.
that, what I would have been advocating for 15 years ago?
Generally not, no.
Okay. And finally, what are you going to do once you graduate? Because you have been extremely well-spoken and more concise and comprehensive than a lot of the elected officials we get on this show. So I would imagine something in policy or maybe even government. But what are you hoping to do after Stony Brook?
No, I appreciate that. I do graduate this year. My term ends May 31st, and I'm looking for what's next. I will say, by meeting so many wonderful people in this role, it's really inspired me to continue a career in public service, whatever that may look like. I'm incredibly passionate about public higher education and the state of New York in general.
Do you want to run for elected office?
I'm not sure about that. I think this may be the most public-facing role I hold.
How come?
I'm not sure. I think it is fun, and I've really enjoyed it, being able to represent, 1.7 million students across the state. It's an incredible honor, but I also love really just getting in and doing the work, and I look forward to doing that for whatever's next.
Was there any thought about, hey, maybe we work on a fifth year at Stony Brook, and that way I can run for re-election?
No, I don't think so. I do think maybe I'll pursue an MPA, certainly at a SUNY institution, but I don't think I'll be back in this capacity.
And why go for a graduate degree as opposed to try to get the experience that you might get from an entry-level job that would come without the additional loans potentially?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I certainly will be going right into an entry-level job. And if I did an MPA, it would be part-time, and it would be very part-time, because I do believe that the career right now is the best experience I can get.
And I'm curious, for me as a college student many years ago, I had no sense of the state government and its role in my education, even though I was going to a SUNY school. How did your awareness of the state government and everything it does evolve? Is this something that came as you went to college, or were you a high school student aware of the Assembly and State Senate and who your governor was?
Yeah, in high school, I definitely had an awareness. I worked on political campaigns. I had an interest in government.
Like who?
All sorts on Long Island, where I'm from. But I definitely, once I got into Stony Brook, met with administrators, starting to meet people who inspired me and taught me that, this is part of something that's bigger. And through that, I sort of just, took it and ran with it, and that's how I got here.
You want to handicap any Long Island political races before I let you go?
No, I don't think so.
Well, see, that's just a smart politician move right there, to stay away from anything controversial. Well, we've been speaking with Luca Rallis. They're an undergraduate at SUNY Stony Brook and president of the SUNY Student Assembly. Luca, thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much.
Fraud and lawsuit abuse raise car insurance costs for New Yorkers. Reforms are being proposed to mitigate their impact, but some Albany leaders want to keep the status quo. Information on these reforms is available at keepnewyorkaffordable.org.